Jardine, and I'm your host for today's WEI Tech Talk. I'm speaking with Mark Gabrielski, who is WEI's most influential technical expert. Mark has been practicing VMware since 2000 and ESX since 2002. Hundreds of integrations and implementations later, his experiences, lessons learned, and insights should help you keep your nights and weekends for yourself. Mark maintains many VMware certifications and currently holds VCP number 46, VCAP DCA number 7, VCAP DCD number 48, and VCDX number 23 with VMware. He is recognized by VMware as an SME in data center virtualization, desktop and mobility, and digital business transformation. Mark is a founder of the IT Architect series of books and authored Foundation in the Art of IT Infrastructure Design and Stories from the Field, Volume 1 in that series. We're going to be talking about the importance of keeping business-critical systems and infrastructure up to date. To tee up this topic, I'm going to share a personal story. I live in Washington State, and we made national news when our unemployment department got hacked at the beginning of COVID. There were literally hundreds and thousands of claims of fraudulently submitted, making it impossible for the legitimate claims to be processed until the user identities could be cleared. It was a big mess, and that was just data security lesson number 1. Fast forward a few months, and the state auditor's office began investigating how the fraud occurred. Well, when the data was transferred from the employee security department to the auditor's office, they used an out-of-date transfer system. The provider of that system had been telling the state for years the solution they were using was vulnerable to attack and was no longer supported. Well, guess what? The data got hacked again during the transfer. So unemployment recipients not only had to deal with delayed claims in the beginning, but they also had to take precautions with their bank accounts, credit, and general identity to prevent further fraud against themselves. Well, did that get your attention? So Mark, now that I've shared my scary story, let's talk about vSphere 6.7. General support for vSphere 6.7 ends on October 15th, 2022. What can system administrators expect if they fail to upgrade from the antiquated virtualization platform?
So, Therese, let's just start with the obvious. End of support means the end of support. The vSphere 6.x family has been around for almost 8 years at this point in time. But in today's world, there's a lot more implications than just end of support. That means no additional security patches. That means, you're going to be exposed. And the story that you've just highlighted, right? Vulnerabilities exist all over the place. And with vSphere 7, which we're going to be getting to, in the past, year, we've seen a lot of stability come out of that. We've brought a lot of our customers towards that release. And it really is about not only maintaining support for the product from the software vendor, but it's also making sure that we have, a roadmap and a strategy that we're going to be able to use to continue to patch as new vulnerabilities and risks get exposed. And if we're still running an old version where none of these vulnerabilities are being addressed, I think that just puts the business and exposes the business to a tremendous amount of risk that I really don't believe that any business wants to take on.
So why don't we move on and talk about vSphere 7 and its latest update, vSphere 7.03. I think you've already started to touch on that, but let's go ahead and explore that a little further.
Sure. And, just so we can clarify for those that may not be aware, VMware releases a lot of releases. They have the 7.0 release. There have been updates to the release. So currently they have had update 1, update 2, and update 3. And you brought up the version 7.03 update E as an elephant, right?
Right.
And that's another version of a patch, right? So time goes on and we got up to 7.0 update 3C. The stability was reintroduced into the system. The product was functional. But you know how it is when you introduce something that doesn't work, people all of a sudden get very hesitant and they don't want to take on, I'm going to use that word again, right? They don't want to take on the risk of being the first person to roll out those updates.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of hesitant folks in in getting up to vSphere 7. And I've been pretty comfortable with it. I use it in the lab. I teach classes on it. The stability exists. And I would find it to be far more, I would find the risk to be far stronger if I stayed at 6.7 than started the migration path to the 7.0 current release.
So what would be your key takeaways for system admins that are making the upgrade at this point?
Well, it is pretty straightforward to upgrade. I do a lot of classes. I do teach a lot of that, and we show how simple the upgrade process is. But if you're not really comfortable and you just want to have that second set of eyes, you're working with a partner somewhere, right? Someone is selling you software. Someone is your trusted advisor. Why not just have them come in and take a look at your environment before you upgrade, talk through it with you? And, if you just don't have the resources or the time, you can get them involved in helping you and doing the upgrades for you. It's something, at WEI, we do upgrades like this all the time. A lot of customers, they do it once every, 2 years or 3 years. And that's something I'd love to see just, become a more normalized operation so that way we could patch every quarter. But if you do need that help, let us know. There's a lot of ways we can talk through it with you. We have a lot of options for how we can do it for you if you're just resource constrained, be it time or people. But it shouldn't be an obstacle. There should be no obstacles for any of our customers to go ahead and migrate to a supported version of software. And not while you're upgrading, you're also remediating a lot of the vulnerabilities that exist in the older software codes.
So I think that kind of brings up something that I've been thinking about. So when you're making a sizable system upgrade, it's a good opportunity to think about the infrastructure that you've got in place as well. So could you talk a little bit about some of the benefits of infrastructure testing and which experiences would most warrant it?
So testing all the upgrades. Right. So that's a huge topic, Therese. And one of the ultimate perfect environment is you buy some servers and if in an infrastructure scenario, and you'll put them into use. And then you would buy the exact same make and model, maybe not as many resources, but you would still buy the same make and model and build a test environment. That way you could go through the operational processes. You could go through the validation for your organization yourself and do these upgrades in an environment that does not run production workloads. That could provide your organization with validation that the processes are correct, that the software operates the way you expect it to operate during and after the upgrades. And I mean, that's just the perfect world. There are so many organizations where that may not be the exact scenario. They may have production systems of model XYZ, and they may be running a test environment that has hardware that comes from vendor ABC. That's fine though, right? The trade-off there is, from the business's perspective, they're perceiving that we're interested in the software's capabilities, not the interoperability with a particular piece of hardware. I mean, we have some customers that run 4 or 5 different makes and models of servers because that's what their customers consume. So they have all of these different mixes. For them to go out and build a test environment for each and every one of those environments that they run, that could become quite costly. But that just, from the top down, the business would, justify whether or not that it is critical to the business to maintain that level of testing and quality assurance during an upgrade process or not. And then we even have it at a much lower risk where customers are just interested in doing the software validation. They understand that hardware comes with bugs and problems, but they just want to go out and handle the software aspect of it and test that part of it. And that becomes very simple because we can just build VM workloads that would mimic your production environment, including mimicking the physical servers. So even if it's the worst case, all you can test and validate is the software processes and operations pre and post upgrades. That still gives you a lot of confidence as you move forward And if there are issues when you're moving forward in a production environment with using 100% virtualized test environment, now all of a sudden you can definitely put your focus onto the hardware because you've already eliminated the software from being a problem. So there's lots of ways you could go ahead and build these testing environments out. And we have quite a few projects now with customers doing that and staging up these new testing environments. It's actually really surprising how many customers are engaged in that activity today versus a year, 2 years ago.
So what I think I heard you just say is that you don't have to have an exact mirror of your hardware in order to still do an effective test in your software environment. And so maybe not be hesitant to set up a test. You don't have to go through that expense as long as you do the controlled software testing. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, you did. But again, you have both options available. I really think it's the business leaders who need to dictate what kind of testing we really need to do at each of these organizations. If you really want to eliminate all risk, well, then we need to match the hardware. If you're comfortable taking on some risk, well, then we can do it as a software only. And everything in IT is a trade-off, right? It's going to be between time, money, and quality, right? And you have to move the bar to match what your workloads and what your business needs.
But really, the important thing is to do the test.
Oh, absolutely. For a lot of our customers, they look to us to say, well, you must have done the upgrade. How'd it go? I usually am upgrading at every point release to be the cowboy because I have a software only lab, then I have a hardware lab, and then I have the lab that actually runs the classrooms where I teach a lot of my the workshops that WEI provides. So by the time I'm done doing my initial testing, I've done it the software only. I've tested it in a hardware lab. Then I've rolled it up into my production, which is my classroom. And I've already done 5, 6 upgrades to make sure that whole process worked well. But I always start software only testing because if I screw that up or the software goes bad, in order to recover and put myself back into a scenario where I can do the test again, it's a matter of a couple of resets. That's all.
Got it. Well, I can't believe how quickly our time has passed today. Mark, you've really shared some valuable points with us. The importance of keeping critical systems up to date, understanding that vSphere 7 and the latest updates are far more stable and much less risky than sticking with version 6.7. And then, testing. We've got to do infrastructure testing to make sure that when you pull the trigger, everything's going to go as you expected it to. So I want to thank you for your valuable time. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I can see how passionate you are for helping other IT professionals.
Well, thank you, Therese. You've led me into a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And this is no longer 1998. In today's day and age, all our computers are all connected to the internet at all times. That means every single one of our systems, every piece of software, from your laptop to your phone, to the servers that run the back end, or even physical, that's on the physical side, but even the public cloud resources. All of these things are always being updated on an ongoing basis. If you're not updating your software, organizations need to account for that as part of the time that is required, right? So just because you buy and implement the system does not mean you should leave it alone for 3 years and then upgrade it once in a great while. I mean, imagine if we had done this with our cars, right? I go out and I buy myself a brand new Jaguar just because I'm fancy like that. And, 4 years later, I show up at the dealership and tell them that something's wrong with my car. And they look at me and say, well, you've driven 100,000 miles. How many times you changed the oil? How many times did you do tire rotation? How many times did you do, X, Y, and Z little tasks that we have to deal with the cars? And if we treated our automobiles the way we treat some of the infrastructures that I've seen, it would just be absolutely horrible for those who own the vehicles. I definitely, love the idea of using that analogy about cars because people get it. We really need to treat our IT infrastructures and maintain them the same way we would maintain something like our automobiles. And that needs to be taken into account from a time and resource perspective from every organization that runs their own IT infrastructure. So, thank you.
If you are looking for more WEI content focused on VMware, go to WEI.com and download the free tech brief titled Why Modernizing Application Development is Mission Critical and How Kubernetes Can Help. And if you are interested in joining a vSphere technology workshop led by Mark Gabrielski, go online at WEI.com to register. A complete training calendar is available with all dates and times included. Engineers, whether they are new to the field or established leaders, are encouraged to attend this hands-on educational opportunity.